Hey everyone, it's Dr. Nic and Professor Mike with Divine Guidance Institute, Modern Day Mystery School, teaching you the ancient way of knowing. You want to say hi?
Hey, Professor Mike here. Today we're going to give you some insight into how to know. Who doesn't want to know? That's what the question we get on a daily basis, how to really know.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to talk about.
About 2 weeks ago, this podcast popped up, Isaiah Robbins' podcast, and he was critiquing the Bill Maher and Charlie Kirk on Bill's show, Club Random. So it was such an interesting conversation between the two of them and Isaiah's critique of their conversation that we wanted to bring it to you. We've got some great insight that gives them a way to go so they can get their own answers. Michael, open it up.
Bill Maher and Charlie Kirk, really, they're arguing about and addressing the question of, is there a God? Is there a prime mover? Is there a creator of the world, the universe as we know it? Or is it total random? Is it completely chance that we just kind of kick around and do our own thing, and when we wink out, we're gone? There is no creator. And this, it's interesting because both of them have a perspective, and they bring their readings and what they know about it. And Bill Maher says, hey, it's all chance, it's all random, and you can't even prove there's a prime mover, a creator, a God. And Charlie Kirk saying, hey, yeah, we can. How do you account for the fact that everything seems to be like a big hole moving forward with a destination? And it couldn't be chance. The odds on that are 1,000,000 to 1. And the argument goes back and forth.
And we're going to play it for you now.
All right, brothers and sisters, interesting conversation I just seen pop up on my timeline. Didn't even watch the full thing. I wanted to bring it to an episode. And it was of Bill Maher talking to Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk asked some interesting questions. Now, if you don't know who Bill Maher is, he's somebody who does not believe in Jesus Christ. He does not believe in the Bible. He does not believe in God like that. So when you have him talking to somebody like Charlie Kirk, it's pretty interesting when they go into detail about different things. So I wanted to bring that clip up here. Check it out, guys.
Is there any part of the Bible you think is true?
Well,
no, it's
true.
An important question.
Well,
meaning, when they were documenting King David,
yes.
Was King David a real figure?
There are shards of it that are, I'm sure.
So Jesus was a real person.
Well, that we don't know. That is not a definitive.
Okay,
it really is not.
Like, take Paul. We both agree Paul was legit and a real person. Paul was a Jew, persecuted Jews, and then had his, road to Damascus moment. Why would he do that? Except for the fact that he's crazy or delusional. What incentive would Paul have to do that? Rich, ruling class, gave up everything.
You're saying to me, is there never a case of human delusion or mass delusion or people can?
Why there's suicide cults? Of course there are. No, I acknowledge that.
The human capacity to believe what's not true, to believe what you want to believe, is infinite. I mean, you are literally the person I'm talking about at the very beginning of the movie Religulous, because the very first scene, I'm sitting in the car and I'm saying, the movie is not a spiritual quest. I mean, that's what we told them, so they'd sign the release. The movie is me saying, I don't know how it could be that so many intelligent people can wall off a part of their mind and believe in something that part of their mind must know is not true. That's the question I'm going for in Religulous. And you're obviously a super smart guy.
And respectfully, go ahead, sure.
And I don't want to insult you on that. I appreciate you saying that.
No, I mean, have you seen me go to college campuses? There's nothing that
right,
can fake.
But you understand my question, right?
Interestingly, ironically, I have the same struggle. I don't know how somebody as intelligent as you, and I'm not trying to offend you,
cannot believe in a virgin birth?
Time out, hold on. All of that takes faith, I acknowledge, but that all of the fine-tuning of our universe, if any of those fine-tunings were off, a famous scientist...
Some of them are off.
A famous scientist said, to believe that the universe and the earth in its current composition was an act of randomness would believe that a hurricane would go through a junkyard and assemble a 737 flight-ready Boeing.
He's wrong.
Okay, that's fine, but there are so many fine-tuning aspects to our existence that I think defy the idea that this is all randomness and all chance. Now,
You know, that's not logical. You're
well-
saying because I don't know the answer.
Bill Maher is an example of somebody having man's wisdom and too much pride to come into actual spiritual truth. That's what he is. It takes a lot more. It's a lot harder to believe there's nothing than to believe that there is a God. A lot more.
I'm going to assume the answer must be that a divine intervention did it. That's not really
Well,
a scientific way of looking at it.
The teleological view, not the cosmological view, is that all of these fine tunings, when layered up one after the other, it defies, I think, reason to think that this is just a roll of the dice. That when you see a baby come into the world, when you see how we naturally heal, even consciousness itself, I think, is a pretty miraculous thing. To think that's all just a bunch of happy accidents, I think it's more rational to think that that's a byproduct of design.
You're saying some prime mover made it so these things happen. I would say if a prime mover could do that, why don't skip all the suffering and why don't you just get us to where we're the perfect thing? Why you need things, I don't know, but okay, the perfect being right away.
Okay, Bill must have never read the Bible. Because he would know that Adam was in that state of not knowing any evil, and he fell. Bill is somebody who has had no spiritual experience when it comes to God. Me, myself, you can't argue with me about God because I've had an experience with God. I've had a supernatural encounter with God. It's different when you get into that point rather than just historical facts. Historical facts is good, which the Bible is full of. Biblical historical facts, it's full of them. Documented facts, it's full of them. But that and a spiritual experience, the Holy Spirit, hallelujah, dwelling inside of you is a divine encounter for those who truly have had it.
We're somehow on this journey to being, completely immortal and healthy, I guess, and completely moral and don't fuck each other up and don't have sex with children and all the bad things we do.
All the evil of our world.
Yeah,
right?
all the evil and the Holocaust. And why go through all that if you are a prime mover? I assume that means you can do anything and just get us right to the end. And then we can just, what? Why? Just a bunch of us walking around being perfect? I mean, why is that interesting to a God? The whole thing just don't make sense.
So that's a separate question, though, of whether or not there is something behind our existence. I mean, so we believe that the universe started with a Big Bang. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but that's not the beginning of things. That's just the beginning of what the known universe is. The big question is what was before that.
And we believe it's a
Right.
being, a God. That's
Right.
that's always
And
a
it could-
constant.
And look, I mean, the misnomer about atheism is that we say, oh, there's no God. No, we just say we don't know. As Richard Dawkins always says, there's theism, which is belief in gods, and they used to believe in many, and then it got to one, and we just believe in one less. So there's just not.
How would you differentiate that from agnosticism?
There isn't.
Okay.
That's another thing that's bullshit.
No, I don't. I'm just asking a good faith question.
No, I think a lot of atheists think that. A lot of people on my team with this, they have that view that, don't split hairs with the atheists and the agnostics. It's like, we're on some part of, I don't know, and I'll never know, so I really don't think about it a lot. I don't get up for church. I try to be a good person because I just think intrinsically it's good for society. It's good for me to be a good person as much as I can. And I don't need the threat of the pitchfork in the ass to do it.
Can I ask a question? So how But you even acknowledge, though, that some people act better if they feel as if they'll be judged eternally.
Totally.
Okay, no, that's a big admission. But
yes.
How do you think society best determines what is good?
That's a great question. I mean, isn't that what government is always wrestling with? What makes society good?
Do you think, even as an atheist, the 10 Commandments, the right side of the 10 Commandments is a good place to
The
start.
right side.
Well, because the left side, I think you'd have a big problem, right?
I have a problem with 8 of the 10 because only 2 of them are laws.
You got a problem with 8 of the 10.
2 of them are laws. Only 2.
What do you mean?
Don't kill
And don't steal. Okay,
and don't steal.
sure.
Like, I mean, this idea that God is this.
But you're good with those 2.
Like
obviously.
the first 4 are just jealous God shit. It's just like, you know what?
No,
God,
honoring
like-
your parents
like-
is not jealous
like,
God stuff.
God's like a pimp who was in the next room and he said, "Who you on the phone with there, girl?" You know,
I mean,
I guess I'm testing
Well,
that.
hold on, but no, it's again, I'm not
All right.
offendable on this, but I think you could. I know you made fun of it in Religulous, but there's something beautiful about not working for a day.
Oh,
You know what I mean, like
okay.
honoring the Sabbath.
Oh, a week is even better.
But
the
like-
well, the Sabbath. No, I mean the Sabbath.
But
is
slowing down and saying that we're not
I know,
going to toil for a day.
But do you need? Why would you need a religion to get to that? Why would you need a religion to? Hey, let's not kill each other and take a day off. Like again, I don't need a threat or a carrot for that. It's just so intrinsic. It sort of reminds me of the beginning of the Declaration of
but
Independence.
if it's intrinsic, then why is it that a lot of countries that don't have Christianity struggle to come to these realizations? That
See, I think Bill Maher is having a struggle between believing in religion and actually believing in people having a relationship with God, right? It's a thin line because a lot of people are solely in religion and only doing things out of pattern and order and because they are afraid of hell. While on the other hand, there's different people who are in a relationship with the Lord. They do things because they love God. They act accordingly because they love God. They act in order because they love God. It's a relationship with the Lord. I pray the Lord, shines more light into this man's heart, gives him a supernatural encounter, because I don't wish hell on my worst enemy. He's saying he's being a good person, but then again, he's making movies about making fun of religion. I don't know. It seems like you got some kind of chip on your shoulder, if you're asking me. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I thought this was an interesting discussion. God bless you.
And the argument, that both of them engage in, they even bring Jesus into it. Was he a real person? Did he have the truth? Is Jesus God? And that argument, that conversation has been going on for thousands of years by theologians and thinkers like Nietzsche, Kant, Sartre, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. I could go on. They wrote books. They have, millions of followers. And did they eventually get the answer? Oh, hell no. Or Maher and Kirk would have already not even had an argument. The answer would have been there. And the answer really that they're looking for, and we're going to give you some insight into, and that is neither one of those people know how to know. How do we know whether there is a God? How do you really know? I mean, how do you know the truth? There you go. That's the door we're going to take you through. We have a system that lets you know 110% for you what the truth is and how to know.
Yeah, like Michael said, they've been kicking that football around forever. And but they still don't know at the end of the day. It's only a conversation and uncertainty. I mean, I'm sure they feel they know in their own heart, but to actually, in Isaiah, as we played that podcast you just listened to, his point is that he's had his own experience. So you can't argue with him. He's had his own experience with God, and he's satisfied with that. And that's the place everyone can get to through the system of knowing, the ancient way of knowing. God speaks to us, Holy Spirit speaks to us through dreams, signs, and intuition and vibration. And that's it. And if you are able to master those tools or techniques that come from within you, you dream every night, whether you remember or not. And everyone's witnessed a sign or a coincidence at least once, and everyone's witnessed a gut feeling. And everyone's witnessed a vibe when you meet people, good vibe, bad vibe. And that's something we've done forever, read the vibes. We call it reading the fabric. And so with this system, it takes you into that level of knowingness. You know, Charlie and Bill go back and forth. The crux of why Bill has his perspective is what he shared is, if there was the prime mover, then how come everything's so messed up? Why is it so messed up down here? Why doesn't he or it just make it go away, make it perfect now?
Yeah, as the, good question. As the prime mover, like, why aren't things perfect? Why aren't things much better than they are? The world's burning, half of the world's on fire, burning down, and the rest of the people, all of us are literally getting our butt kicked on a daily basis. So why aren't things perfect? Well, here's something to consider. Consider yourself, the prime mover makes it perfect. We're sitting on our couch, we're watching our favorite TV show, eating popcorn. Everything's perfect. And what am I learning? How am I growing? What am I experiencing sitting on my couch? Not anything. I'll tell you straight up. There's no growth. There's no movement. Everything's perfect. I'm there. So where is the learning? Where is the movement, the spiritual movement? Where is forward movement? There is none. And that's part of the plan of why we're here, to experience through pain, suffering. We're challenged on a daily basis. Suddenly I have to address a major problem and figure it out. Why did my relationship fall apart? Why did I lose my car? And somebody stole. Whoa, they stole it. How do I address that? What do I do? Do I have insurance? Things require me to step in, solve the problem, and I learn by that process, by that experience. And that's why we're all here, obviously. And it works. And we grow as spirit. We grow as being. We grow as soul, if you want to say that. So, it's interesting that Maher and even Charlie Kirk says, well, what about St. Paul? St. Paul, how did he go from being persecuting Christians and putting them in prison to representing Christians and taking care of them? Well, he says it has to be God that did that. Well, St. Paul was going to Damascus and he got hit by a bolt of lightning, literally. That's verified. Knocked him off of his horse. He was blind, couldn't see. And so when he got his sight back, he changed his name from Saul to Paul and started representing Christians.
And that's because he had an experience.
Yes.
You see, that's the difference. The experience or not. I had my experience on the mountain. And it took me a year to recover from that experience, an entire year. And the only thing that kept me stable was I had to ask for a sign every waking hour for an entire year, until I came into full knowingness that this experience was legit and that everything that was transmitted to me, all the information about the worlds and the here and the after and heaven and hell and the truth of reincarnation and everything you can imagine was transmitted. And I was, a Catholic at the time, happy going to church. Everything was cool. I wasn't questioning anything. Well, this experience on the mountain had me question my entire belief system. Okay. And that's why it took a year to reconcile what was real, what's not. How do I know? How do I know? How do I know? And this is one of the reasons, the basis for starting the Divine Guidance Institute, using the ancient way of knowing. We, the tools of dreams and signs and intuition. Michael met me in a dream 3 years before. I had a gut feeling the minute I saw him, he was the one. And now it's been 30 years. We have been studying these tools for 3 decades, experimenting, studying, researching, and utilizing dream signs, intuition, and through vibration to elevate your consciousness so you can connect and have discernment. And it's that experience, the culmination of what he was saying. And use the tools. Use the tools of dream signs, intuition. You can ask any question and you will get your answer immediately. The minute you ask, the answer comes in. But most of us are not equipped and that tuned in to discern the answer the minute we ask. You can ask before you go to sleep. You can ask for a sign. You can ask for confirmation. Like I did, I had to ask every waking hour for a year. And every time I would get a sign within 5 minutes of asking, something would happen. I'd overhear a conversation, a rainbow would appear in the sky. And it was a confirmation of, yes, Nicole, everything that was transmitted to you, all that data all the wisdom, whatever you want to call it, is true. So even though my belief system was pulled out from underneath, God let me know over and over and over. Holy Spirit let me know that that was accurate, and you've gone through a door. You've walked through the door into a new reality, actually. And that's why it took so long to reconcile.
And Maher and Kirk are having that argument, and it's the old mind argument. It doesn't go very far. And they've been doing it for 5,000 years. It can be verified, and much longer than that. All the greats, the Romans and the Greeks and the Babylonians, they all went down that road. And what did they get? Nothing from it. And it's like Nicole was saying, there is a key, and it's called the language of the universe. And that is what we are sharing with you. We already have the answer. Dream, signs, intuition. I had a dream of meeting Nicole, and then I had more signs than I could handle. And I intuitively, gut feeling, knew it was the right answer. I'd been given the answer I had been seeking, and I went through the door. We all do that. We can do that. All we need to realize at the front end is we don't need the experts. We don't need the Bill Mahers and Kirks and the arguments and the Nietzsche, Kant, Sartre. What do we get from that? We hit the wall. We sit there and go, I wonder how I really know. There's the language that's provided. We are the language, and we get it through dreams, signs, intuition, and sound. Sound, light and sound come in, and we can use that to ascertain our personal way of knowing. And then we really know. So when someone says, do you know you're in love? And you go, oh, yeah, I know that for sure. You can say that for your life. I know, because you got the answers from the system, which is within each of us.
Yes, that's how we're built mechanically. Every human is wired this way. You're built this way. And that's the thing that's different. It doesn't, require any certain faith or belief. And whether you're a Christian, Buddhist, or an atheist, like I said, we all dream every night and have had a gut feeling at least once and have witnessed a coincidence. And you can track your data, experiment, and come into full knowingness. And that's our gift to you. That's what we want for you. Not because someone said so, not because you read it in a book, but because you had your own experience and you walked through the door. And again, that's why we started the Institute, the nonprofit Divine Guidance Institute. And here's one of our slogans, and something we love to say, and it's trust yourself. DGI, the system doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you how to know what to do. It tells you how to know what's right for you, what path to be on. Is there heaven and hell? Is my deceased grandma in heaven? Is she okay? Did my cousin who committed suicide, did he go to hell? Is he damned forever? These types of questions, you can have an answer. Here's a quick testimonial from a client. She said, my cousin killed himself a week ago, and we've already received a sign, her and her family have already received a sign showing us that he is okay. And so they were able to breathe and relax. And those are the things, people go to a psychic for this stuff. It's like, oh, that, each to each his own, because we're all about freedom and free will, big time. But you don't need to go anywhere.
You can follow the rules, the regulations, listen to the experts. You can read all those books. I've read them all. I'm a professor. I've taught at many universities, and I read them when I was much younger. I mean, all of them: Kant, Nietzsche, Sartre, Socrates, Plato. And you know what? I still didn't know what I wanted to know.
No.
What's the answer? Is there a prime creator? Is there a mover? What is our freedom here? How free are we? Things, who am I? How do I fit into the scheme of things? Those questions came from the system when, guess what? I looked in the mirror. In other words, the truth was within me. I already had the answer. And I went, oh. And I started paying attention to my dreams, the signs, the intuition, and it opened that door. And now I know, that's the door for me. And I can't help you go through that door. You have to walk through it by paying attention to dream, signs, and intuition.
When we went on the Mancow show many years ago, and we played this on a recent podcast, actually. He had us on talking about signs, and he thought we were just full of shit and didn't know what we were talking about. And he actually hung up on us on live air. We thought, what happened? What happened? And the producer called and said, no, he hung up on you. Yeah, he hung up on you. And I was appalled. We've done so much radio and TV and everything at that point. It was like, what? Someone actually dissed us on live air? Anyway, and on our conversation, we were talking about signs. And he's like, well, what sign? I said, I don't know. You ask a question. Should I know if signs are real? Should I believe in signs? I said, set up a sign for that. He goes, like what? I said, I don't know. Vipers. I love cars. Viper, Corvettes. Those are two of my favorites. I said, Viper, you need to see a Viper. He's in Chicago. He's like, the spider, the car, or the snake rather, or the car. I'm like, doesn't matter. And then shortly after we got discoed. So the next day, his producer is calling us incessantly. I mean, like 20 times in a row, calling, please answer, please get on the phone. He wants to have you on the show. He wants to apologize. Big error, hanging up on you guys. So please call him so we can do the show. And so Michael did the show. I said, forget it. I'm done with that guy. Anyhow, Mike did the show, and this is what we aired a few podcasts ago. And maybe we'll stick it in here in a minute. We should air actually, we're going to air the apology here in a minute. But the bottom line is this. He called back to say, when I got home, I received a package from Slash, the guitarist Slash. We were working on a pinball machine called Viper. And when I got home, I got a package from UPS and or some carrier. And it was a ton of Vipers came out of the package. Stickers, pictures, him and his Viper. He's got a car, the pinball machine, the decal, the logos. There must have been 100 Vipers that came out of the package. And so he goes, I don't know how you did it, but you won, sir. I'm eating crow. I'm eating crow on the air. I've never done this. I've never apologized. And I
said, okay, no, test us. Test us. Said, okay, I want to see a Viper snake or a Viper car. Anyway, I get home. There's a parcel from Slash, and it's pictures from us working on this great pinball machine, a legendary pinball machine that we worked on 10 years ago called Viper. But also in there is pictures of his snake collection, loaded with Vipers, and his car, a Viper, and statues of Vipers. He had a band after Guns N' Roses and before, what's the other band? Slash's other band. Come on, Velvet Revolver. But, he had a band called Snake Pit. Anyways, so literally this package, this parcel, inside pictures and propaganda and pamphlets from our Viper game. Wow. So you said that I should go on the radio and ask for a sign, and that sign would be a Viper, and I laughed at you, and I thought you were goofs. So what happened? I mean, that wasn't just that was a smack from the universe telling me, hey, yeah, wake up, you're on the right path.
That's exactly right. That was a huge, huge message. It's all connected. And because it's all connected, according to quantum physics anyway, the universe is saying, hey, wake up. Wake the up, Mancow. You got it. Hey, that's cool, man. That is very cool.
It is cool. It is cool. I'll give you that. All right, Mike and Nicole, I still think it's hokum and BS, but I don't know. I tested the guy, and you won, sir. NeverGetBlindsidedAgain.com.
I have no idea. I don't even know how to explain it, but there's something to it, obviously, and that is why, I'm actually eating crow. I'm actually apologizing on live air.
And that was a first for him. He's never apologized ever in the history of the show. And he said that. He said, I'm going to apologize for the very first time. And that's because he got his divine guidance. And it was literally, that's how signs work. They're like pure magic. And it was so magical and such an epiphany for him that it blew him away. He thought, oh my God, this is the real deal. Well, it is. And that's how it works. So it was a real magical insight for him out of nowhere. He thought not in a million years. And sure enough, boom, epiphany for him. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we started the mystery school. So he walked through the door that day with signs. It was such a stunning thing. I don't know where he is today. We haven't talked to him about these topics. Maybe we should hit him up, actually.
And it's that's the breakthrough. He had his own sign, his personal experience. Then he knew that dream science intuition, what we were bringing to the show, was not bullshit. He had his own experience with this system, how it works. He said, I don't know, it's like magic, but it's the real deal.
And, we always like to say, Holy Spirit has its way, and it had its way that day. And, here's one last thing before we close. We always say, if the definition of God were different, the atheists would be believers and the believers would be the atheists. Here's the deal. God, is like some dude in the sky. And that's where the atheists have trouble with, like, there's some dude in the sky that runs everything. And of course, I'm just using these words loosely, okay? We could really get into the convo, but we're not at this time. But if it were reversed, that God was energy and constructed things from an energetic perspective, and God is just energy, it's not a man in the sky type thing, the atheists would be the believers, and the believers would be the atheists.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a matter of,
how you look at it, perspective, really. And if it's maybe quantum physics is the thing that runs everything, and you want to call that God a vibration, and the roles would switch. Then the atheist would go, oh, I'm okay with that. Yeah, quantum? Yeah, sure. So there you go.
And one last thing about the Bible. The Bible it's a great story, and it's a fabulous, and those things, some of those things occurred. Here's the deal. They took so much out of the Bible, and that's why, to some, it seems like it's not a valid story or experience that happened. They took a lot out. If they put everything back in, and the reason they took a lot out was so the church could have more control. And
when it was deciphered, originally translated, it was by Saint Jerome, and the church called him and said, we want you to leave out dreams and maybe give them a negative spin. They're of Satan, whatever. It went on and on and on. So a lot of that was pulled out because Jerome translated it from the Hebrew and the Greek into Latin, and Latin eventually into the English, where it got all rearranged and taken out so the church could control what the people thought, so that they could work with them in that sense.
Yeah, so if you had all the pieces back together, then the story really, really it takes on some truth, some serious truth, and that you could really get down with. But the missing pieces kind of leave it open to interpretation. Hey, as we know.
And there you go. I mean, that makes our point. Also, you're dealing with books, and once again, whether it's the Bible or Aristotle and Plato. I mean, you're going by someone else's word, what they think, how it works. Hey, how do you really know that's the truth? Well, dream signs intuition. You can go within and find that. You'll get that answer immediately. As soon as you ask the question, it contains the answer. And there you go.
Anyway, guys, that's it for today. And we'll talk to you next week. Take care. Hey, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to send in your comments. We love your questions, and we'll talk to you soon.